Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Filming with Josh podcast. This is episode number 115, Enhancing the Customer Experience.
This is the Filming with Josh podcast, brought to you by Rustic River Media. Welcome to the videographer's home for tips, tricks, and how to make flicks.
Welcome back, y'all, to another episode of the Filming with Josh podcast. If you are new to the podcast, thanks for listening in. And if you have been a longtime listener, I appreciate you sticking around. For those of you who are new, just know we do have a Facebook group called Filming with Josh. Be sure to check that out. You can come and ask questions, post your work, ask for feedback, things of that nature, and we'd love to see you there. What a week. I mentioned on the last episode that I was supposed to be going to West Texas this week to shoot a project for Greystone Castle, one of my retainer clients, but my truck broke down. I had a GMC Sierra 1500 that was a 2014 model. I bought it in 2015 when I was 23 years old. This was almost 11 years ago. October would have been 11 years ago if you're doing any math. You can kind of get a good guesstimate on how old I am. But I've had that truck for, like I said, almost 11 years. I've put 230-something thousand miles on it, and I knew it was kind of getting close to the end, to the point where I was going to have to start really putting some money into it to fix it up, because I had things like every time it would rain, which it did not rain in Texas, especially here in the Hill Country, for a very, very, very long time. But now it's finally starting to rain a little bit again. And so every time it rains, my floorboards would be wet and my back passenger door wouldn't open with a lock anymore, electronic lock. So I'd have to reach around the side in front of all my clients to unlock the door. Or if I had one of my kids back there, I wouldn't be able to easily get to them without having to reach around, which was super annoying. And then my tailgate, I had a short bed truck because when I did buy it, I didn't have as much equipment as I have now. And so every time I go to shut the tailgate in this 5.8 foot bed, I'd have to like slam it really hard and like fight my gear to get it to shut. And I had the latch on the tailgate like come apart on me several times doing that. And last year, actually, my editor and I were in Abilene on a shoot, and that happened. We couldn't open up the tailgate to access my gear. I put Diamondback bed covers on my trucks because they are rock solid, and you can lock your equipment in there, and it's pretty safe. And it's weather protected. But when the tailgate doesn't open, that means the only way you can access your stuff is to open one end of the Diamondback bed cover and then try to pick up these super heavy cases. It was just super annoying when that happened in Abilene, but it's happened several times, actually. And then on top of that, I started having some issues with coils going out, which is very normal, right? You replace your spark plugs, your coils, your wires, no big deal. But this time the coils weren't fixing it. And turns out I had a camshaft issue, and I could keep going, but you get the point. I hit the 230,000 miles, and things were just starting to fall apart. And this past weekend, as I was getting ready for that shoot, my truck was starting to really ride rough, and I was told by multiple people that if I tried to take it to West Texas, I probably wouldn't make it there. So I finally decided to get a new truck. I postponed my shoot. Unfortunately, my client was understanding, and went truck shopping on Monday, which was 2 days ago because today is Wednesday, and ended up finding a truck that I really wanted. So I bought a 2026 F-250 Super Duty, and I got the 6.8 foot bed, so a foot longer, got a little bit more storage space. I did order another Diamondback cover for this one because they're not cross-compatible. I can't wait for that to come in. I'm having that expedited, should be here into next week, so I can get all my gear loaded back in my truck. But I really like this truck. It's my first ever diesel. I did go with a diesel because I tend to load a ton of camera equipment in the bed of my truck. We're talking tons of C-stands, combo stands, double risers, triple risers, etc., low boys. I put a lot of A lot of tripods back there. I usually keep 4 tripods back there. I've got all kinds of flags and frames, and then of course my actual cameras and sandbags and lenses and yada yada. It gets heavy, and my half ton was starting to sag a little bit in the back because of how much weight was back there. You got 1200X lights, and you got 700X and 400X and ADCs and like all this stuff, and it's just you add it all up, and it's a lot of weight. And I think I was starting to push a little bit beyond what my half ton was built to handle. So I went and bought my first 3/4 ton diesel in an F-250 Super Duty and got that 6.8 foot bed on it. It's 4-wheel drive, just like my other truck. This one, my old truck was lifted. If you've never seen my truck or a picture of it, I had a lifted truck with 35-inch tires. And yes, I know that's a little obnoxious, but hey, I do live in Texas and we like our big trucks down here. Plus, I do film a lot on in some pretty remote places, especially on ranches and things, and that allowed me to get to where I needed to go with a lot of clearance. But with this truck, it's already sitting pretty high, so I don't have to worry about clearance as much. I did take it in today, 2 days after I bought it, and I put a smaller valance panel on the front, so I have more clearance on the front. But yeah, I really like it. Never bought a diesel before, but it runs great. And now that it's a 3/4 ton versus my old half ton, I can put a ton of weight back there and should be able to get even better mileage. I know that diesel's more expensive, but it kind of balances out because you get a lot more miles per gallon typically. I can tow anything I want. I can drive this truck for a long time with a 34-gallon tank and with good mileage. I can drive this thing for like almost 600 miles without having to fill up, which for a lot of the traveling I do for film work, it's going to be fantastic. So I'm pretty excited. Never thought I'd have a diesel, but I really, really like it. And I got to say, when you turn it on in the morning, it's kind of a good feeling when you hear that diesel crank up. So pretty stoked about that. Did not anticipate buying a truck this week. I was thinking I was going to be in West Texas doing some marketing content for that hunting outfit out there, but not doing that. Instead, I'm home and looking at seat covers and floor mats for a new truck. But super pumped. But that is how my week started off. I ought to do a podcast one day. We'll see about how I kind of travel with my gear, because I do load my truck up pretty heavy, and I do put a lot of stuff back there. So maybe I'll do a future podcast on that. If you'd like for me to, go to that Filming with Josh Facebook group I mentioned earlier, if you're on Facebook, and drop a comment and let me know. All that being said, I'm here this week, and I wanted to do a podcast episode about enhancing the customer experience. And this is something I've really been working hard on over the past 18 months, and I want to talk a little bit about that. So let's back up on why this even matters. I live in Central Texas. For those of you who are not from Texas, Central Texas is what we also refer to as the Texas Hill Country, but I live in a town called New Braunfels. Used to be a small town when I was younger. I lived not too far away in a town called Wimberley, and I'd go to New Braunfels, and it only had 30,000, 40,000 people, but now it's like 105 or 110,000 people. We've grown a lot, and we are sandwiched right in between Austin and San Antonio. And from where I'm at, I could be in Austin in under an hour. I can be in San Antonio in 40, 45 minutes. And I can be in Dallas in just over 3 hours, 3.5 hours or so. Fort Worth, 3.5, 4. And I can be in Houston in about 3.5 hours. And so from where I'm at, I'm kind of centrally located to a lot of big cities. And if you don't know anything about Texas and the Texas video market and photography, but especially video, it is very competitive. There is a lot of people here trying to do video for a living. You've got gobs of people doing real estate, weddings, marketing content for small mom and pop businesses and things. There's just droves of people out there, freelancers doing that kind of work. On the other end of the spectrum, you've got really big production houses that are doing really big projects. If you've been keeping up with kind of trends and kind of feature films, you'll notice that a lot of things are being done in Texas now. Even things like like Taylor Sheridan buying the 4-6's ranch and moving a lot of his production here. A lot is happening in San Marcos, which is only 25 minutes from where I live. San Marcos is becoming like a major film hub, and there's a great film program there at Texas State, and the town is currently going under development of this massive film studio there. That is going to be a film studio where a lot of sets will take place for all different kinds of movies in the future. And then that's just here in Central Texas. Austin, also, if you want to talk about Austin has their UT film program, and I mean, Matthew McConaughey is a professor there, just all kinds of film stuff happening there. And then the Dallas and Houston markets for video and film is also huge. So you've got a lot of people gobbling up the freelance work. You've got a ton happening on the high end. And then you got kind of the middle ground, which is where I live. That's the commercial, the corporate, small doc, indie films, all the things that happen in kind of that middle ground, live streaming, broadcast, news, video, photo, journalism, etc. And that's kind of the area that I play in. But whether you're on the high end, whether you're on, I don't want to call it the low end because it's not low end, but whether you're a freelancer or whether you're working on the higher end feature stuff, or whether you're kind of in the middle where I live, in my state, there's just a lot of competition. And so to set yourself apart, you can't just say, well, my work is better. We make higher quality projects. We have better visuals. We have better sound. We have better storytelling. Because the reality is no matter how good you think you are, there's 100 people just next door to you that are a lot better. That's just the truth. And I know that about myself, right? Like I think that I do pretty good work, that at my production company, we do good work, but I also know that there are other production companies out there. There are other people out there that do work that's even more visually compelling than what we do. And I understand that, right? And that's an important characteristic or an important trait if you want to be in this business, is knowing your place in the market. Like that's a valuable trait for someone to have. And I say that because it helps you see, like, where do you need to improve to continue to climb up that ladder if you have somewhere that you're trying to grow to. But it's also important because it helps you look at what you're doing and say, okay, who is my competition and what can I do to stand out against them? And so when I look at my market, there are so many people doing video work in Texas and even right next to me. How do I compete against them? And one of the ways I've always tried to compete against people is through what I call our capabilities. And what I mean by that is when I look at my video production company, I would say that we are a boutique firm. What I mean by that is we are made up of a smaller team. I've got myself as the primary producer and kind of DP. I've got Jake, our sound guy, Jared, our chief editor. I've got Amanda on our team, who is a phenomenal corporate business photographer and shooter, and video shooter. And then I have some other contractors that I bring in from time to time on an as-needed basis. And with my team, we are able to take on some pretty cool projects. We're able to do really good work. But we're a smaller team, right? I'm not employing a ton of people. So when we get projects in, I mean, of course I can hire and crew up as big as I need to. But the reality is most of the work I get, our boutique firm is handling it with a handful of very skilled individuals. So as such, the work that we do is going to be that commercial work, that corporate work, that video, photojournalism type of projects. We're going to be taking on a lot of event coverage, doing a lot of live streaming work, and some smaller doc work. Like that's kind of the world that this boutique firm of mine plays in. So how do I, as a boutique firm, compete against other boutique firms? And one of the ways I do that or have done that has been through our capabilities, which is I've invested a lot of money in all kinds of different equipment that allows us to show up on basically any job that we're going to get hired for and be able to have amazing lighting, amazing sound, good camera work, and be able to have good movement and be able to produce nice quality projects. There are not a lot of other boutique firms around me that have access to the type of gear that I have. And that's not me trying to showboat or anything. I'm just saying that that's a competitive edge for me, is I've invested a ton of money in lighting. I've invested a ton of money in grip gear, flags, frames, stands, etc. I've invested a lot of money in our sound equipment as well as our cameras and whatnot. And so I feel I have a competitive edge against other boutique firms by being able to be more capable in what we can accomplish with what we have. A great example of that is actually live streaming. We are super tricked out for live streaming. Everything from multi-camera live streaming with obviously switchers and things. We have our own soundboards. We have all kinds of different audio setups. We can do headset mics. We can do lapel mics. We can do. We've got podium mics. We've got stage mics. All kinds of different ways to capture sound. Run it through our mixer. We can do live sound through our mixer. We can run live sound and the streaming sound at the same time with our sound guy and our mixer. We've got instant replay devices for our streaming. We can do iMag to project what we're doing on a large screen. We can do live captions as needed, live graphics as needed. Like we're pretty geared up for live streaming. And so we're capable, right? Very capable. So being capable through investing in quality gear has been one of the ways that I've tried to have a marketing edge against other boutique firms that are in Texas. But another way that I've tried to be competitive is through enhancing the customer experience, which is what today's podcast is about. In my opinion, the customer experience is something that not a lot of people pay attention to in the video photo world. I'm going to talk to people in both the video and photo world here because we offer both. Our main business is videography and live streaming, so video production. But we also do photography. As mentioned in the podcast last week, a lot of the projects we get require both video and photo, so we offer both. So in saying that, whether you are a freelance videographer or a freelance photographer, or you own a boutique media firm like I do, wherever it is you are in that spectrum, most people tend to forget about the customer experience. They worry mainly on what do their photos look like, what does their video quality look like, and put so much of an emphasis on that they don't really think about the customer experience. And the customer experience is huge. I am telling you right now, if an agency hires you to make a video for them or a series of videos for them or to do photography for them, even if your work is amazing, if the customer experience isn't there, there's a good shot they won't hire you again or won't recommend you to somebody else. Customer experience is a large part of how you are successful in this industry. And there are certain things you can do to enhance that customer experience, and I'm going to talk about a handful of those things. Here's kind of what I do. I'll start with the easy, low-hanging fruit first. Number one, you got to be super responsive. I've myself not hired many contractors or have quit hiring contractors simply because they weren't responsive. There have been several contractors that I've worked with over the years that either I had never worked with or I had worked with several times that I would reach out to, and they would just be so non-responsive that it would really frustrate me. And it would be stuff that that doesn't make sense to me. Like, for example, I would reach out and say, hey man, I am looking to hire someone to come work with me on X project on X date. Are you available? And I wouldn't hear from them for like a week. And I'd have to reach out again and be like, yeah, man, I'm definitely interested. And I say, okay, well, here's, the kind of budget I have to work with. Or maybe I'd even ask them that question, like, what would you charge to do this job? And I wouldn't hear from them again. And I'd have to reach out again. And it's like, I don't want to have to beat down your door to get your business. Like if I'm looking to hire you, you should be super responsive so that you're showing me you want to be hired. It doesn't make sense, right? And so from that perspective, the end customer is the same way. When I'm working with a customer, if they're reaching out to me looking for a quote, wanting to talk about a project, I'm immediately getting back to them. And there are circumstances where that may not be possible, right? Like maybe they reached out to you at 4:50 on a Friday afternoon and you've got to table that till Monday. That's fine. I'm a believer of that. You got to have a little separation in the work-life balance, right? Or maybe you're on vacation, or maybe you're on a job and you physically can't get back to them right away. That's all understandable. But if that is true, then when you do get back to them, you need to say that up front. Like, hey, I apologize. I was gone for a work trip, but I'm back now. Something like that, to let them know that you care and that you want to be responsive, and this is why you haven't been. And if you have the ability to be super responsive and get back to them immediately, you need to do that. And this is for anything, not even just like people looking to hire you, but during the project, if a customer's reaching out and asking a question or is checking in on a project, you need to get back to them immediately. And even if they haven't reached out to you, it's a great idea to communicate with them. Reach out and say, hey, just want to give you a heads up, that project we shot last week, we've started post-production on it. Things are looking great. That just lets them know that, hey, I'm here. We're working on your project. And letting them know that you're very communicative and that you care. That goes a long way. So being responsive, being a good communicator is like the easiest thing you could do to increase your customer experience. And it seems like such a simple thing, but I can't tell you how many people I've worked with over the years that are in this field, the video photo field. And this is, when I say video photo, I'm also talking to sound guys. They're just as bad, and so are editors. They're also just as bad. Anybody in this business I come across, like I would say like 85% of people I come across in this business are poor communicators and are not very responsive. And that is just not good. So if you want to know like an immediate thing you could do to increase your customer experience, to separate yourself in a competitive field, be a good communicator, be responsive. It's a very easy thing to do, and it immediately will improve your customer experience. Another is being flexible. I get told all the time by customers that one of the reasons they like working with me is that I'm very flexible. What do I mean by that? Well, I have, for example, a PAC, or Political Action Committee, that I do a lot of work with. They are a conservative PAC that does a lot of lobbying for conservative-related policies like school choice, lowering property taxes, things like that. They're in Austin. And they'll call me up all the time and be like, hey, Josh, I know this is last minute, but Governor Abbott's going to be holding a rally or giving a speech next Wednesday in Austin or in Houston or in Dallas or in West Texas. Like, any chance you guys could come out and document that photo and video wise. And I'm almost always going to find a way to make that work. Even if I personally can't physically be there, I'm going to find a way to make that work. I'm going to find the people to go there and to do that for them. I'm going to be super flexible, and I'm going to figure it out so that they can have that thing captured whether I'm there or not. That shows them that I'm really flexible and that I'm able to work with them even on a short notice. Or they might call me and say, hey, Josh, we have a job that, that job that we had coming up that's happening next Thursday. Turns out we're going to have to do that in a couple weeks. Is that okay? And I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. And I do in my contracts, I have a clause that says if you do reschedule a project, particularly if we already have a set date, that you can have to pay upwards of a 25% penalty or reschedule fee. And I have that in there mainly if people kind of abuse my time. For example, if someone was to say, hey, that job we're supposed to do tomorrow, can we push it off and reschedule? I've got a hair appointment. You know what I mean? Like, that's not being really respectful of my time. And in that case, I'd be like, yeah, we can reschedule it for your hair appointment, but as per the contract, there's a 25% rescheduling fee. So I do have that built in, but the truth is I only actually tap into that clause and point to it when people are abusing my time. But if a client calls me and is like, hey, can we do a reschedule? Here's why. If I think it's a reasonable request, I'm going to be flexible with them and be like, hey, you know what? No problem. Let's pivot. And my customers really like that. Another way of being flexible is maybe we make a mid-project shift in what we're doing. Maybe we have an idea of what we're doing, but partway through the project, we realize maybe it'd be a little better if the video was a little longer or a little shorter, or if we broke it up into multiple videos, or we added photography, or we did whatever. No matter what the request is, I'm always ready to play ball. They come to me, they tell me what they want, what changes they want to make, and I'm flexible. I work with them. We figure it out. So being flexible has for a long time been something that my customers have told me they've really liked about working with my business, and is one of the reasons why they continue to work with me. I've been told that many times. And I even recently had a customer, it was that political action committee actually, they mentioned to me how traditionally they would work with big firms out of DC, and they'd have to schedule things like months in advance. Whereas with me, they could pick up the phone and theoretically, they could ask me to be somewhere tomorrow, and I'd either find a way for me to be there, or I'd find a way just for somebody else to be there. So being flexible is another thing you can do that's low-hanging fruit that can help enhance the customer experience. Here's another one: having quick turnaround times. There's an individual I know that has a similar boutique firm in another state, who told me one time that he was working on editing his project. It was like a 5 or 8 minute long video, and he had been working on it for like 6 months. He was in post for like 6 months, and he had admitted to me that his customer was starting to get a little frustrated. And I asked him, I was like, what is taking you so long? Like, why is it taking you 6 months to do a 6 or 8 minute or whatever it was long video? And it was not an overly complicated video, but he was just having a hard time getting it done. Like, it took him a long time to find the music and to fit the shots in the way he wanted. So he'd work on it a little bit here and then work on it a little bit there. And it just took forever. And I asked him, I said, why don't you turn this over to somebody else and like hire an editor to do it for you? And he's like, well, I don't trust anybody or anything like that. And let me tell you, I actually have been in that position. I can speak from experience because I was that guy. When I was younger and earlier in my career, my turnaround times were really slow. I refused to hire someone to do posts because I tried a few people, it didn't work out. And rather than continue looking for the right person, I was just like, I guess I'm going to have to edit everything. But that's really stressful because you're also shooting and project planning and doing all the other things that go in running a business, doing bookkeeping, marketing, etc. And so the editing would get tabled, and then I'd get to it a little bit, but then I'd feel overwhelmed because I have so many other things going on. So I'd put it off and put it off and put it off. And I will tell you, I know earlier in my career that cost me customers. And for customers it didn't cost me, it at least frustrated them. And they would check in all the time. Well, dude, where's my project? Hey man, I'm working on it. I'll get that to you right away. But then I still wouldn't. So I'm not saying this as someone who hasn't been there before, because I have been there. But if that's you, if you're listening to this podcast and you identify with that, you need to let go of the reins. You need to find someone to help you. Either you need to get your job done, like just like sit down and knock it out, or you need to go find someone, no matter how hard it is. Try 1,000 people if you have to, but find someone who can do it for you and start working with that person on a recurring basis. And that might mean losing some money because you're paying someone to edit, and that means that's money you're not making. But I do that with my wonderful editor, Jared, and it did cost me. It cost me money that I could be making on these jobs to hire him. But I love providing work for him to help him provide for his income, for him and his wife. But two, it means that I have a lot faster turnaround times. And I'm still involved in the projects. I still oversee the editing and will provide feedback. Sometimes I'll jump in and take over on color or Foley and stuff just because I had a vision when I shot it or when I DP'd it, how I thought I wanted it to look and sound. So I might say, hey man, do everything but color and Foley, and I'm going to jump in and do that just because I want to. But even then, if I feel like I don't have time to do that, I just let him finish it out just so we can get it done. Because the reality is, as a client, this is the truth, man. Like people, you probably heard this saying before, that perfection is the enemy of success, and it's totally true. Because the reality is someone who's buying a video from you or who's buying a photo shoot from you, they would rather have like 90% of your best work and have it quickly than have 100% of your best work and not get it for a very long time. That's just the truth. So having quick turnaround times, that's part of having a good customer experience. And I'm telling you, man, we've turned around jobs next day. I've turned around a job the same day several times. But a lot of times we're turning around projects, I would say on average, within 1 to 4 weeks of shooting them. And 4 weeks would be on the longer end. And that's even with like a complex project where we might be interviewing a ton of people and we might be doing it on multiple cameras, a lot of B-roll, and it might even be a little bit of a longer project, but we still get it done. Now, if it was like a feature-length documentary, like obviously that's different, but I'm talking about to people out there who are doing a lot of what I'm doing, a lot of commercial work, a lot of corporate work, brand films, sit-down corporate-style interviews, etc. Don't let that stuff sit on your editing software for months at a time. Sit down and get it done, or find someone who can sit down and get it done for you and turn that project around. Your customer will be very appreciative of that, and they'll want to work with you again and again and again and again. And that is something that I do that I know my customers appreciate. And like I said, it wasn't always that way for me, but it took a little bit of me having to learn to let go and give the reins to somebody else. And when I did that, my customer experience and my customer satisfaction skyrocketed because we're turning around things very quickly. And I will tell you, in my market, I turn around things faster than the vast majority of people around me, and it makes my customers really appreciate working with me, and that is a competitive edge. Let's start talking about now some of the things I do that are not as much low-hanging fruit. And this might not be something that you want to run out and do today, but here are a few other things I do that enhance the customer experience. And a couple of these things, two of these things I'm going to mention are newer to me, and then one of them I've been doing for a while, but I'm going to start with the two newer ones first. One is I invested in Teradek wireless systems. I've been wanting to buy into Teradeks for quite a while, but I put it off because it's expensive. But this past year, I finally bit the bullet and did it because I was hired to do this multi-camera live stream of a boat race here locally in New Braunfels, where I live. And just running wires to every camera just didn't make sense. And part of the reason why I wanted to buy into Teradeks for so long is for live streaming, because running wires is not fun. Nobody likes running hundreds of feet of wire and then having to roll it back up every time and gaff it down so it's not a safety hazard, right? That's no fun. Nobody wants to do that. Plus, it kind of limits your freedom and flexibility, like makes it harder to move around or get live shots where the camera's moving, stuff like that. So I wanted to break the chains of being forced to always be wired in by getting Teradeks, and the boat race thing kind of pushed me there. Now I do still wire up, from time to time, depending on what we're doing, but the primary reason I wanted Teradeks was for shooting live events. Another reason why I wanted them, though, was to increase the customer experience on shoot days. What I mean by that is, when I invested in the Teradek units, and what I bought is a Bolt 6 XT 750 transmitter for my FX6, and then I bought 3 Bolt 6 LT, I think is what they're called, LT 750 transmitters for my mirrorless cameras, my FX3, A1 Mark II, and A1. That gave all 4 of my cameras wireless transmitters. I also got matching receivers for all of them, so an XT 750 receiver for the FX6 and 3 LTs for the other 3 cameras. And that gave me the ability to do wireless video transmission and reception for all my cameras for live streams. But on top of that, I have an OC 22-inch, I guess it's technically a 21.5-inch 10-bit production monitor, and it can do quad viewing. So I can run up to 4 cameras into this monitor at one time and see all 4 at the same time. I don't need a switcher or anything like that to do that. So if I'm doing something like a multi-camera interview, I can have a nice big production monitor, and I can actually bolt the receivers on the back of this monitor, put the monitor on a C-stand, and during a big sit-down multi-camera interview of 1 or 2 or 3 people being interviewed, and having maybe 2, 3, 4 cameras, I can have a client sit back and watch all the interviews live on this nice big monitor, which helps them to really see and get a visual idea of what to expect for post. I also picked up a small HD Ultra 7 Bolt 6 wireless monitor receiver. And what that is it is basically a 7-inch small HD monitor that's got the Bolt 6 receiver built in. And to increase the customer experience, I even went as far as replacing the handles that come with it with wooden handles. So whenever I'm showing up on a commercial shoot, like if you see any of the BTS photos from this Perky Barber law firm shoot I've posted about the last week or so, you'll see a marketing and communications manager from the law firm holding this wireless monitor as she is watching the footage back that's being captured live. And I even have it set up where I can add a second receiver to the back of that monitor, and I have a hotkey on the monitor because the Ultra 7 has physical buttons in addition to being touchscreen. She can press, or whomever can press F1 and see the built-in the image from the built-in receiver, or press F2 and see the image from the secondary receiver that I added to the back of the monitor. And there's a V-mount behind that, so it's V-mount powered. And that way, a client can jump back and forth between the A cam and the B cam with a press of a button. So can I. It's great as a director's monitor too. I can sit back and direct an interview and watch both cameras back either by pressing F1 or F2, or you can do a live split screen on that 7-inch monitor as well, so I can see both shots live side by side. So from a director's point of view, it's a great director's monitor, but it's an amazing monitor for enhancing the customer experience because they're able to see on this beautiful handheld monitor what's being captured. And that's a little more portable than that bigger 22-inch monitor I talked about a minute ago that I put on a C-stand. And this monitor is also great for commercial work or even B-roll for corporate work, where we might be out, like I actually posted about this a day or so ago, where me and that same project, me and the marketing and communications manager were out with my editor, Jared. He came with us for the shoot, and we were in Austin. We were capturing a bunch of different B-roll, some handheld shots, some long lens stick work stuff, some gimbal stuff. I posted some of the gimbal stuff, and I had a Teradek on my FX3. I had it on a gimbal, and I'm sending that image to the wireless monitor, and Sarah, the marketing and communications director, who I've worked with for years, she's sitting there holding this monitor, and she's able to watch the gimbal shots back live, and she's able to get really excited about the shots and also provide feedback of, hey, I really like that shot, but is there any way we can get it from this other angle? I'm giving her the ability to work with me in real time. And some of you may cringe at that thought, like, I don't want them to have input, but I do. Like, they're the customer. I want them to be involved. That's part of being or giving out a good customer experience, is including the customer when possible. And so by giving them a monitor, I'm letting them see the shot. I'm letting them provide input if needed. Most of the time, they don't even need to provide input. They're just blown away because they're looking at a small HD monitor, which is a beautiful image. And they're able to look at this image and be like, wow, that looks so cool. I love that shot. This is going to look so good. This project's going to be so cool looking. And that's exactly what happens on shoots when I pull that out. And the marketing communications manager in this shoot, for example, when we did the interview portion of this shoot, she was going around and showing each person that was getting ready to be interviewed, like, hey, this is what it looks like. Go stand there. Let me show you. And it gets them excited about the interview they're about to do because they're able to see what the A cam looks like of them and of themselves and the B cam of themselves. And so by having that monitor available, it's great for me as a director's monitor, but it's also really great about enhancing the customer experience by letting them be involved with the shoot, letting them see the shoot and get a sense of what it's going to look like before you ever even get to post. And that is so much better than trying to replay something on your camera or have them step over and look over your shoulder. I'm just handing them a monitor. It looks like a cool piece of technology, which it is, and it gets them excited. And then it gets them really excited, not just about the tech, but about what it is they're about to get once the shoot wraps. So that is a way that you can really enhance the customer experience. I'm not telling you to run off and buy a bunch of Teradek systems, but this is something I'm doing to give me a competitive edge. Along that same vein, I also recently invested in a Tentacle Sync timecode slate, also known as a clapboard with timecode built in, for those of you who aren't sure what a slate is. So why did I invest in this? I have been using Tentacle Sync products for many years. All of my cameras have Tentacle Sync timecode generators on them so that I can sync them all in post really quickly. And then I have one on my audio recorder, my Mixpre 6.2 Sound Devices recorder, so that when I'm recording audio to my sound bag, it's also in sync with the cameras. And then on top of that, I have a bunch of Tentacle Sync Track E recorders that I use when I find myself in a situation where maybe I'm having some wireless audio interference or something like that, or if I just need to throw a mic on somebody and just have it record internally. If you want to learn more about those, check out episode 102 that I did titled All About Wireless Microphones. That'll dive into the Tentacle Sync Track E's on that podcast. I also talk about the Tentacle Sync Track E's on a separate podcast, episode 79, titled All About Timecode, where you can learn a little bit more about those if you're interested. Point is I've been a big believer in the Tentacle products, and I've used them for a long time. And Tentacle, a while back, came out with the Time Bar, which is a physical bar that has time code on it that you can see. And then they came out with a timecode slate that the time bar mounts into, and you can buy them already pre-combined as a package, which is what I did. And I separately bought the case and the extra handle and all the things that you can get to really trick it out. And I really like this timecode slate, also known as a clapboard. Why do I like this? Well, one, it does serve a purpose in post. I don't really use the clap part of the clapboard all that much because all my cameras have time code, so I don't really need the clap. But for post, what it's useful for is whenever we're going to interview somebody, and let's just say we're doing like with this law firm shoot I was talking about a minute ago, we had, I think, 8 or 9 people we interviewed that day. It was really over 2 days. And so my editor, Jared, when he dives into post, he needs to know who's who. And yeah, we can have them state their name and spell it on camera, but it's also really easy if right when we start the very first, like right when we go to hit record, if they're holding a timecode slate that has their name and potentially like their lower third title on it. So it pops up also on the thumbnail, right? So that way he can see who's who as he's going through post. Now, to be perfectly fair, you could take a Sharpie and write that same information down on a blank sheet of paper and accomplish the same thing. But I chose to do it on a Tentacle Sync timecode slate because clients think it is cool as heck. That's the reality, which is crazy, right? Because it's like a $700 item or whatever it is. Like, plus I bought accessories for it. So I've spent a good chunk of money on this timecode slate. Granted, a timecode slate back in the day used to cost a lot more than that. So it's all about your perspective, but it's a lot of money to spend to just have someone's name in front of a camera. But for me, it was about enhancing the customer experience, because when they can show up to a shoot and we've got all these lights and cameras and microphones and all the grip gear and everything everywhere, that already is impressive. The Teradek unit, handing them a monitor and saying, this is your monitor for the day, that's impressive. That excites them. But what puts them over the top is when I pull out the timecode slate. They are completely blown away by that. It makes them feel like they are on a movie set, right? Because here is this slate. I've got their company name written on it. I've got my name written on it as the DOP. I've got the name of the person that we're interviewing or the scene written on it. And then to put it over the top, it's got the spinning numbers that's spitting out timecode information. Because you could go on Amazon and buy a clapboard for not a lot of money. But when you have a clapboard that's got a digital string of numbers spinning, like, it feels like Hollywood to the customer. And they all, like, so far, like, I've only had it a handful of months, but so far, every time I pulled it out, they are giddy. Like, all my customers have been giddy so far. Like, this is so cool. And they'll take like selfies of themselves with it. They'll ask me like, hey, can you take a picture of me with this so I can post it on social? And of course, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And they always tag me when they do it. Free marketing for me. But so far, my experience has been, when I bring that on set, everybody gets excited. Even the people that aren't paying me, just like if they're being interviewed as part of the project, they're like, dude, this is so cool. This is not what I was anticipating today. This is way more sophisticated than what I thought we were doing. Like, that's what I want them to feel like. I want them to be blown away by what it is that they're about to do when we say lights, camera, action. Like, that's what I want them to feel, right? The timecode slate does that. And again, yes, you could buy a cheap clapboard off of Amazon, but I wanted to take it one step further. I wanted to have timecode on there so it really blows the client away. And again, it also serves the purpose of splitting up scenes or letting, my editor know in post who's who. But when you bring out a timecode slate and it's got a spinning timecode on it, in addition to you writing their names and stuff on there, and then you clap it, or better yet, ask them, hey, do you want to clap it? Like, what, really? I can do that? Yeah, go for it. Like, when you do that, it completely enhances the customer experience. And these are things they're going to remember far beyond the video that you're going to hand over to them. Again, as I said earlier in the podcast, there are a lot of people out there today that can produce nice quality work. But when you can give the customer this kind of experience, like good communication, being responsive, being flexible, quick turnaround times, showing up with wireless monitoring units and then handing them a clapboard that they can smack that's got their name on it and time code on it. Like, dude, it puts it over the top. And that's what I want my customers to feel. So when I purchased that, it was a little bit for me and a little bit for BTS photos because it looks cool. It looks cool for marketing purposes and proposals and stuff. But its primary purpose is to excite the customer. And I will tell you, like, Sarah, who I mentioned earlier in the podcast, the marketing and communications manager for this law firm I just did the shoot for, she used to be a marketing and communications person with another company I've done a lot of business with over the years, one of my bigger clients. And she told me, she's like, Josh, I got to say, I've worked with you for years, but this clapboard is the coolest thing I've ever seen you bring out on a shoot. I mean, just high praise there, right? It just shows exactly what I'm saying. Like, it's something that gets them excited. So you don't have to go run off and do that, but that is something that I've done to enhance the customer experience. Let's talk about the last thing, because it kind of ties all this together, which is BTS photos. If you follow my company, Rustic River Media, on social, or if you're on the Filming with Josh page on Facebook, you'll often see me posting, usually like weekly, BTS pictures. And they're usually not cell phone pictures. They're almost always like a decent quality photo taken on a nice photo camera. I do that for several reasons. On most of my shoots, I'll bring with me my little small Sony RX1R Mark III. I had a Mark II before that. They're great little full frame pocket size cameras with a fixed 35mm f2 Zeiss lens. They produce a really nice image. They're kind of expensive for what they are, but they're small and they're portable, and I can throw them in my bag and have them with me all the time. So I had a Mark II, I now have the Mark III, and I'll pull that thing out and I'll take BTS pics all day long. Now, I don't do it when it's going to interrupt the shoot or take away from what it is I'm being paid to do, right? Like, I'm not going to stop a shoot to take BTS photos and interrupt the flow of what's going on. But when there's a moment when we have a break, when the customers get a drink of water, or when we've just maybe wrapped up an interview or something, I'll say, hey, let's take a couple minutes to shoot a few BTS pics, and then I'll take some pictures. Sometimes I'll even do it on one of my bigger cameras, and I'll bring someone, like I'll bring a PA, I'll bring my editor Jared, because he PAs for me some, and I'll hand him like my Sony A1, which takes pictures silently without any sort of penalty from being in electronic mode. It's one of the great things about the A1 cameras. Same thing with the A9s. But I'll hand him one of my A1s and I'll say, hey, do you mind taking some BTS pics? And he's always happy to do it. And so he'll take BTS pics of, maybe me working. He'll take BTS pics of the clients with their clapboard. He'll take BTS pics of the camera equipment, etc. for me. But if he's not there, I'll do it myself. And I've even hired people, like I've brought in Amanda, who I mentioned earlier in the podcast. She's one of my favorite shooters. I'll bring her in and pay her to shoot BTS pics. I literally paid her to come shoot BTS pics of the live stream project we did for that boat race thing I mentioned earlier in the podcast. And all of that is great marketing material for me. That's a big part of why I shoot a lot of BTS pics, because it's good for me to throw on Google posts under my Google business profile. It's good for me to post on social media, good for me to use in proposals on my website. But one of the major reasons why I do it is for the customers. Customers do not pay me for this service, but as something that's like a special add-on on a lot of my jobs today, I'll take the time to take BTS pics of all the different things we're doing when appropriate. And sometimes I'll tell the client I'm doing this, and sometimes I'll surprise them. But what I'll do is usually within a few days of the shoot, I'll sit down, I'll cull through the pictures, I'll pick out the best ones, I'll take the time to edit them, and I'll put them together in a really nice gallery, the same type of galleries I would use for a paid photo gig, and I will deliver that gallery to the client digitally via email and be like, hey, here are some really cool pictures I took that I wanted you to have, or that I want you to be able to utilize. Sometimes they know I'm doing it, sometimes they don't, but they're always so excited to get that. And again, I'm not getting paid to take the time to take the pictures or to cull through them and edit them and to put them into a gallery, but it creates marketing material for me, and it gives me something that I can give the customers that they were not expecting, because I don't tell them I'm going to do that ahead of time. They see me do it the day of and I explain to them what I'm doing, or they get delivered a gallery out of nowhere that they weren't expecting. But either way, they aren't aware of it. And so whenever it happens, they're always like, whoa, this is so cool. Like, they love it. And it gets them really excited, because it shows them, or reminds them rather, of what we did during that shoot. Like, the lighting, the camera work, the audio, etc. It looks really techy. It looks cool. I always have pictures of them, being interviewed or holding a wireless monitor or something like that, or chatting with me. And then I'll have, maybe a couple brand pictures of like their logo on a wall or whatever. And it's real special for them, because it not only reminds them of the shoot we just did, but it gives them something they can share with their friends, their family, and on their social media sites. And that's so awesome, because it pays off for both of us, right? Like, they go to their social, they're like, hey, we just got through shooting this project earlier this week or last week or whatever with Rustic River Media, because they'll usually mention me because they're really appreciative of the BTS pics. And they'll say, we just got through wrapping up this project with Rustic River Media. It was such a fun shoot. We can't wait to post this project once it's done. And they'll post it on their social, and that gives me a ton of free marketing and publicity. And then for them, it gives their fan base or their following something to look forward to, something to be excited about, something to interact with them about. So it's really cool marketing content for both them and me. And then on top of that, it gets all of their customer base to learn about my business, right? Now, all these people that are like the law firm I was mentioning earlier, Perky Barber, they literally made a post about that last week, and they posted some of those BTS pics. And now all the clients that follow them that they represent now see these really cool pictures and have heard of my company, right? And that's what I want. It's such a great way to kill two birds with one stone, right? Get your client something that enhances the customer experience, that gives them something tangible they can hold on to, that they can show their friends, and that helps you promote your business at the same time. On top of that, it also kind of fills the gap between when you shot the project and when you turn in the deliverable. Now, I already mentioned earlier, we have fast turnaround times, but let's say it takes us 3 weeks to get to a project because maybe we're also working on a couple other jobs, right? So let's say it takes us 3 weeks to turn it around. If I send them that on day 10, it kind of, not only do we have fast turnaround times, but it kind of reminds them that, hey, we're here, we're working on your job. Here's something to be excited about before we turn the job in. And it really helps to make it to where it's not like you're showing up, you're shooting, and then 3 weeks later you hear from us again with a rough cut. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're showing up, we're shooting the project, and then you're getting BTS pictures from us, and then you're getting the final project. And so you're always getting something, right? And that really enhances the overall customer experience. And so that is something that I started doing a couple years ago, and I do that pretty often, and it has been wildly successful for me and in terms of enhancing my customer experience and further marketing my business. A few other small things I'll mention that I do as well. I don't always do this, but a lot of times when we're doing like interviews, I'll run transcripts and I'll send the transcripts off to the client, and I'll let them take the time to read through the transcripts if they want, to help highlight things that were mentioned during the interview that they know they want to say. That kind of gives them, or that they want said in the video, that kind of gives them an opportunity to be involved with post-production, while also helping me and my editor know exactly what they want to be in their interview, right? Because they're telling us through the transcripts. So that helps us and it involves them, which is a good customer experience. So that's another thing that we do. And then on top of that, when possible, we will oftentimes show up with coffee for our customers, or maybe a breakfast sandwich or donuts or something. A lot of the jobs that we have, we don't really need to bring crafty for. If you aren't sure what crafty is, it's usually where you're bringing in like food and beverages and things for the customer and for crew. We typically don't feel the need to do that on most of the jobs we do, but we will show up a lot of times with a cup of coffee or some donuts or some kolaches or something like that to provide for not only my crew, but for the customer and whoever else is going to be involved with the shoot that day, which just helps them be like, wow, like they took the time to think about us this morning, you know, just a little things like that. And there are other things we do beyond that. Sometimes we'll send like really nice follow-up thank you emails and things like that as well. But it's all of those little things that when you compile them together, make for a really great customer experience. And that is why when you look at my Google reviews, we've got a solid 5 stars, you know, like we want customers to not only get a good product, but to have a great experience throughout the whole production phase of creating that product. And that has been a huge competitive edge for my business. What are some things that you do to enhance the customer experience? Is there anything I didn't mention that you want to share? If so, go to the Filming with Josh group. If you're not already a member, ask to join, and then comment on this podcast post and let us know. I'd love to have a conversation about it. Just keep in mind, there are a lot of people out there today that can create some really great photo and video content. You have to think of other ways to be competitive. Having a great customer experience is one of the best ways you can do that. And in my opinion, is more valuable than what camera you're shooting on, what your color grade looks like, or how cool your slow motion shots are. Have a really good customer experience, turn things around fast, be a good communicator, and you will continue to get repeat business, and you'll have customers who will want to sing your praises, who will want to leave you a good Google review, and who will want to tell other people about what it is that you are doing for them or what you did for them. That's all I got for you this week. I look forward to talking to you next week. Take care.
To learn more about Rustic River Media, visit us online at rusticriver.media. Thanks for listening to the Filming with Josh podcast. Catch every episode by hitting subscribe today.